In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night. Hello everyone, I'm Anthropomantic Fiend and I do horror-related things on the internet. So today I am bringing you the final Lugosi Madness movie. Lugosi Madness is what I'm calling this month because I've reviewed nothing but Bela Lugosi movies. We are not completely done with Bela Lugosi. I think he's showing up a little bit later, but after this I am going to take a break from his movies for a little bit. As you obviously know if you clicked on this video, I'm talking about The Ape Man. This is a movie that came out in 1943, and it follows Lugosi as yet another mad scientist, this time Dr. Brewster. Dr. Brewster has performed this experiment that has caused him to start regressing back into an ape. He has injected gorilla spinal fluid into his spine, and he's starting to turn into a primate. We're going back to the primate thing. First the gorilla, and then now we're back around to the ape man. I don't know why he thought it was a good idea to try it out on himself, but he did. So he's starting to turn into a gorilla, and he's living in the basement laboratory in his mansion where Mrs. Brewster lives. She just claims to have never seen him again since he went off to do his experiments. Now he is living there, and he's trying to find more human spinal fluid that he can inject into himself to become more human again. And in order to get this, of course, he has to kill people, because this is a horror movie. We gotta have some death in it. And Mrs. Brewster is a paranormal investigator, sort of someone who visits haunted places and writes books on them. And so she's being investigated by these reporters, and they eventually start to catch on to what's going on, and we get another murder mystery with reporters type horror movie, as so many of these Lugosi movies are. I'm gonna start with the soundtrack again, as I always do. So we've got yet another very spooky 30s, 40s, what have you, melodramatic symphonic horror score. I can't get enough of that stuff. It does all tend to start sounding the same though, and this is no exception. As a matter of fact, I swear some of the music that they play in this is stock music recycled from another movie that I watched on this disc. I couldn't tell you which one, but I have no doubt I've heard that music before. Again, it's not just music in the opening credits and then silence for the rest of the movie like you get in some films. They really do bring out the music when they're doing their big horror scenes, so I appreciate that. And it has sort of a distinctive theme. I recognized certain musical cues, which was nice. Acting-wise, I don't even know what I have to say about Lugosi. He's just being Bela Lugosi and doing his evil mad scientist thing and being awesome at that. But he's not in nearly enough of the movie. And the rest of the acting just doesn't grab you. I wasn't terribly interested in any of the other characters. You've got two reporters, a man and a woman. I like that she is very much a strong female character, but there's just sort of these constant, like, sexist jokes coming from her partner that are sort of kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also not, so But she really does hold her own throughout the movie, in spite of a few little places where she slips up and starts to become this damsel in distress character. They were decent, but again, I wasn't terribly interested in them. And all the other characters are sort of there. I appreciated that Mrs. Brewster was this paranormal investigator, even though they do sort of make it very generic. They don't go into many details about that. She and Lugosi live in this creepy old castle, and one of them's a mad scientist, and one of them's a paranormal investigator. So that's pretty cool. The set itself is nice. I mean, all the other sets in the movie are just sort of generic houses, buildings, etc. Nothing special there. And you've got yet another creepy old mansion, and I love those. And you've got another laboratory full of all kinds of test tubes and various bubbling liquids and smokes and such. And I loved that. Also, there's a gorilla in the laboratory. Another guy in a suit gorilla. That looks pretty silly, as does Lugosi's "Help me, I'm starting to turn into an ape" makeup. It's basically what would happen if you translated Henry Hull's "Help me, I'm starting to turn into a wolf" makeup in Werewolf of London into an ape and then put it on Bela Lugosi's face. I'd have to show you a picture to really give you a good sense of that, but you can look it up and know exactly what I mean. Lugosi and the castle and the Brewster family, which I wonder if they have any relation to the Brewster family from Arsenic and Old Lace. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. They're cool. Other characters are decent, but not really all that interesting. You've got another brief scene with, a black servant character, which, just sort of more little subtle bits of racism in these old movies that I don't like, which is exactly what I was talking about in my last review, so yuck. The plot's fairly thin. It basically progresses as you can expect. I've basically given you a synopsis of it. Here's Bela Lugosi going around with his ape, murdering people, and then kidnapping this doctor who he's worked with before to inject this fluid into his spine because he can't do it himself and neither can Miss Brewster, I guess. Then reporters are starting to catch on to what's going on and investigating into it, and then things sort of collide and everything goes horribly wrong, as if it wasn't horribly wrong from the beginning. The plot's kind of thin, but it's still got a twisted enough concept that I was somewhat interested, mostly just when Bela Lugosi and the ape were on the screen, though. Another cool little thing is Lugosi really does sort of try to act like he is turning into an ape, because not only does he just have this admittedly silly makeup on, but he's sort of walking a little bit like an ape, and you can tell that he's also trying not to, because he's trying to force himself to stand upright, but he's hunched over and doing this monkey walk thing, and it's pretty cool. And this is the 1940s, so they don't really show anything gruesome, but when Lugosi's describing what he's feeling, it's almost like 1940s body horror or something. I mean, you could basically do a remake of this, which is basically what happened when they remade the 1950s Fly, and turn this sort of classic sci-fi horror into a body horror thing. I don't think we need that, because, I mean, I feel like The Fly probably already does that well enough, but I don't really have much else to say, except that there's also one other character who's just kind of this guy who shows up in scenes, and you don't know why he's there, and you're just like, the hell is he doing here? What? You figure out who he is by the end of the movie, because he's not really doing anything except sort of peeking into scenes and occasionally just talking to characters and saying like, hey, you might want to go over there, and just being like, hey, are you headed that direction? Okay, cool. And he's just sort of awkwardly in scenes, and you don't know why, but they explain why at the ending, and it just goes oddly meta in the stupidest way. But I'll talk about that in the spoilers. So overall, this is probably my least favorite of the Lugosi movies that I'm reviewing for now. It's got all the campy factors that I love in Lugosi movies, but it just doesn't really hold my attention that well, and everything's just kind of thin and not really campy and melodramatic enough, because the Devil Bat is pretty light on substance too, but it takes what substance it has and goes full throttle ridiculous with it, and it's perfect. This movie doesn't, and I'm just kind of, I could take it or leave it. So it has things in it that I think are worth checking out, but it's not a must-watch, which I've said with most of these. Devil Bat is a must-watch. You have to watch The Devil Bat. That's a great movie. This one is probably the most forgettable of all of the movies. So that is the spoiler-free section of my review of The Devil Bat. But here are the few little spoilers I have. At the very end of the movie, Lugosi has killed more people to get more spinal fluid, and he's broken into this doctor's office again. He's demanded that he inject him again, and he turns around for a moment, and the doc, like a complete idiot, just smashes the spinal fluid on the ground. Then Lugosi gets furious and starts to strangle him. Also, this is not a spoiler, but I forgot to mention it, and I'm just gonna kind of leave it here. Not only does Lugosi have the ape makeup and walk like an ape, but he talks to the gorilla as well. I'm kind of using gorilla and ape interchangeably, even though I'm pretty sure they're not. They might be. I'm not an animal expert. He'll just sort of grunt at the ape and tell it what to do, and it's pretty ridiculous, and he'll just sort of do ape things as well. But yeah, the doc just sort of smashes the spinal fluid thing on the ground, and Lugosi starts grunting at him and strangles him to death. He goes back to his lab, and he's followed there. The two reporters are going around the house, and they're both sneaking around, not knowing that one is there, and you almost get, like, what would be a slapstick moment in another movie, where the female reporter accidentally breaks a bottle over the male reporter's head as he comes through the door and knocks him out, but she's also like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, wake up, and this gets Brewster's, Lugosi's, attention, and he runs after her, drags her down to the lab, and is gonna get some spinal fluid out of her, because of course, this is the damsel in distress moment I was talking about. He comes to surprisingly fast and runs down there, and the two of them set the gorilla free, and we get Lugosi versus his own primate specimen, and yeah, he dies, and they escape. And then they're about to do a little romantic thing and get in the car, and then this random dude who we've been seeing throughout the movie is just sitting in their car, and they're like, the hell are you doing here? And who are you? And he just goes, I'm the author of the story. Pretty screwy, isn't it? And he rolls up the window, and it has the end on it, and it's just, what? It's just, what? What was that? Why did you go meta on me for literally no reason at the end of the movie? And it's not just a random thing at the end of the movie either. We've been seeing this guy throughout the movie, and there's just this little meta thing with the author of his own story being in the story, and it's weird. It's so weird. I don't know why it's there. It's dumb, but I love random stupid stuff like this in B-movies, so I'm all for that. Again, overall, I could probably take or leave this movie, but it's another classic little Bela Lugosi B-movie that's nice for what it is, so check it out if you want to. That's my review of The Ape Man from 1943. Thank you for checking out my video, and hopefully I'll see you in another one of my videos. Bye.